Okay, ready? I want to talk to you guys about something that separates novice and expert developers, and it may not be the thing that you expect me to talk about. I'm not really here to talk about this distinction that being a part of language knowledge or framework knowledge, but I've spent a lot of time over the last year working with developers of a wide range of expertise, and I find that expert developers are much better at dealing with their programming environment than novice developers are. That they're much better at focusing their attention on the important tasks in front of them. Now, I don't want this to sort of devolve into the idea that the only thing I'm talking about is using your editor, and I'm definitely not saying that you need to use Vim in order to be a good developer. In fact, I'm pretty close to saying the exact opposite. But I do want to say that you should understand your tools and learn to use them as well as you can. So let me start by oversimplifying a couple of cognitive science concepts, like the concept of cognitive load, which is the amount of processing that your brain is doing at any given time to solve the problem that you're working on. And cognitive load breaks into two parts. There's intrinsic and extrinsic, where the intrinsic part is based on the complexity of the task that you're trying to do, and the extrinsic part is based on all the stuff that you have to do to get to the problem that you're trying to solve. Now, there's a long-standing rule of thumb in cognitive science about the amount of things that you can keep in your short-term memory at one time, and that is just 7 plus or minus 2. That's not very many things, but in fact, that number is even probably too high, and more current research suggests that the number is as low as 4. So it's very important that you lower your extrinsic load, that you do not try to keep extrinsic things in your mind when you're trying to solve an important task. For example, this is the kind of thing I sometimes see in a novice user's desktop. One of these is my source code, one of these are my tests, one of these is my log, one of these is a random command line, and I can't tell which is which means I either need to remember or I need to keep checking. Okay? Now, one thing we can look at is what chefs do. Chefs also try and solve complicated problems, and unlike developers, when they make mistakes, flame and knives are involved. So they try to do a good job of setting up. And chefs have this concept called mise en place, which is that you do all of your preparation up front and you lay it out nice and neat so that you can see everything, so that everything is, when you are at crunch time, everything important is already laid out for you. One kind of example along these lines that has been sort of studied by cognitive scientists is what short order cooks do to keep their environment straight. A short order cook could throw all the hamburgers on the griddle, but then the short order cook needs to remember the state of each burger and remember to flip them. Most good short order cooks develop a system along the lines of starting the burgers on the left-hand side and continually pushing them to the right. As long as they remember to do that, which is a simpler task, then the position of each burger on the grill implies its state, and it's one less thing that they have to keep in their head. Okay. None of us have griddles, although many of us use external monitors that are roughly the same size and shape. But what we can do is use that stuff to show us as much of developer, our browser, our editor, our command line, all of that stuff at a time, to use the environment to show us the things that the computer knows so that we don't have to continually ask for this information or store it in our tiny 4 available slots. So one really simple thing that you can do is improve your prompt, your command line prompt. This is Jeff Grossenbach's from Peepcode, and it shows a ton of information. It's got his RVM status, it's got his Git status, it's got his current directory, it's got whether the Git is dirty or not. These are all things that he no longer has to keep in his head because the environment is continually telling them to him. You have all sorts of tools that will remember complicated commands for you. You have aliases, you have bash history. If you're on a Mac, you have text expander. You have things like Geek Tool that will put random information on your desktop that you can see. Because if you can take a set of complicated tasks and remember them together, that's called chunking, and that enables you to treat those things as one unit in your head, so it only takes up one of your available slots. The important part here is to understand what your tools do and what your tools can do and what information you need to get your job done. You need to be aware of the kinds of things that you're doing, and if you have a task that is repetitive or that is annoying, you need to find out, you need to be aware enough of your process to know, hey, this is something that I could stand to simplify. This is something that I shouldn't have to remember. Because in a complicated programming task, The limited resource is your attention and your brain. It is not your typing. It's not the programming language. It's what's in your head. So you need to focus that on the important things and let your environment keep you from being distracted. Thank you.